Pour éviter la désinformation, quelques petits conseils. Vérifiez la source, regardez qui a écrit l'info que vous lisez, et est-ce que la personne ou cet organisme est digne de confiance. Et vous pouvez aussi aller sur le Décodex, Hoaxbuster, Check News, Les Observateurs, vrai ou fake. Ce sont tous des sites qui recensent les fake news, les rumeurs. Comparez, variez les sources, regardez ce que les autres médias disent sur un sujet. Si aucun journal, aucune chaîne de télé, aucune radio n'a parlé d'une info, eh bien c'est probablement qu'elle est fausse.
How can kids 6, 8, 10 years old be describing rituals that come from a book like the Book of the Dead?
When I was 8 years old, they would take me out of school, and the principal would take us out of class and tell the teacher that they're taking us to a special program to learn. And when they took us to this blue house. We never got justice. Prosecutor wouldn't prosecute the case despite all the people that were telling the same story. We didn't want to tell anybody because they told us that if we told them, we could get in trouble too because of all the things that we did, but we were only kids.
En 1990, à Evansville, dans l'Indiana, comté du Vanderburg aux USA, une sordide affaire de rituels pédocriminels a été étouffée, comme à l'accoutumée. À l'époque, l'affaire dite de la Maison Bleue Satanique avait reçu un écho national, notamment avec l'émission télévisée Affaire, qui qualifia alors Evansville de Devil's Playground, terrain de jeu du diable. En 2017, Jon Ponders de NYSTV, en collaboration avec David Carrico, auteur de The Egyptian Masonic Satanic Connection, ont produit un documentaire, Dark Covenant, Secret of the Secrets, détaillant l'affaire de la Maison Bleue, très peu, voire aucunement référencé dans le monde francophone. Pour des raisons juridiques, le documentaire ne mentionne pas la connexion maçonnique de cette affaire, mais les producteurs affirment en off que les accusés sont tous liés à la franc-maçonnerie.
One thing that I wanted to make sure I was kind of clear about, which I don't think I mentioned, that the people that were involved in this whole thing in the Blue House, the school principal was the most common name mentioned. And I'm not going to mention his name over there. He's already tried to sue people before for it. But in some of the extra footage, his name's mentioned. Basically, all of the people involved with this cover-up, with the perpetration, all of them were Freemasons, every one of them. So I don't know if I made that clear, but they were all Freemasons, which is a public record that they were Freemasons. That's one thing I want to make sure I was clear on, because I think that I forgot to mention that everybody involved in the investigation, the cover-up of investigation, and the principal and the officials mentioned were all Freemasons.
My name is David Carrico, and in the early 1990s, my wife Donna was doing some volunteer work with a group called SLAM. It was an acronym for Society's League Against Molestation. And Rick and Pam Doniger were also working with SLAM, and children began to disclose to Rick that they were being abused ritually and satanically. And these children were telling the story that they were being taken by school officials to a certain blue house where they were being exposed to satanic rituals involving sexual abuse, animal, and even human sacrifice.
Le principal défenseur des enfants, Rick Donninger, a déclaré que tous les enfants de la Maison Bleue affirmaient avoir été maltraités par des francs-maçons. Donninger a également affirmé que l'enquête a été confiée à des policiers également issus de la franc-maçonnerie. Malgré les nombreux témoignages et preuves, l'affaire n'a jamais été conduite devant un tribunal et aucune arrestation n'a donc eu lieu, laissant une nouvelle fois les petites victimes dans la solitude de l'injustice.
My name is Rick Donninger, and I'm from here in Evansville, Indiana. The prosecutor's office just flat refused to take any action on it. It was a mystery.
I'm not going to talk to you. I don't believe the allegation.
You don't believe it's even, you don't believe this story?
I don't believe this particular story.
If the system isn't going to be able to help these children, where would you suggest these parents go?
I don't know. That means not too possible.
I mean, this was the frustrating thing about it. There were 12 children that went on record to Bill Welborn, a former prosecutor, and Sue Donaldson, who was the head of the psychology department at the University of Evansville. She interviewed 6 of them. These children all told the same story. None of them knew one another. They all give the same testimony, and they named these 2 specific individuals that were both Freemasons, and that they were being taken out to this house, being ritualized. It was confirmed medically. They were taken to the hospital. Abuse was confirmed. There was this one child that said that the principal took her into the office, violated her with an object. This child was taken to the hospital. The abuse was confirmed. There was physical testimony. There was multiple witnesses, but yet there was no prosecution.
I'm not going to prosecute.
Our attorney, Mr. William Welborn, he donated his time to represent all of these kids that wanted representation by an attorney. And he took on the cases for free. And he had talked to the children, he talked to the mothers, and he was convinced that these kids were telling the truth.
First of all, the fact that there are so many children who are telling very similar stories. Second thing is that there is similar evidence of physical abuse in a number of these children. They have been injured, damaged in the same way. I'm not going to prosecute.
Les enfants ont rapporté avoir subi des séances de choc électrique en visionnant par exemple des photos, visant à inverser le bien et le mal en renommant la photo en son exact contraire, tout comme leur mettre la main sous l'eau chaude en leur affirmant que c'est quelque chose de froid pour eux. Nous ne savions plus le bien du mal, affirmeront certains. Les enfants disaient avoir été forcés de regarder des animaux morts et dépecés dans des coffres, mais aussi forcés à ravaler leur propre vomi s'ils tombaient malades en consommant les bêtes sacrifiées.
We were just learning about Freemasonry, and when these children came and said that their perpetrators were allegedly a Masonic school teacher and a Shriner principal, so we began to do research, and then we began to uncover the Masonic connections to the occult and to the mystery religions.
There's a book that's published by the Masonic McCoy Publishing Company called Who is Hiram Abiff? And this book goes into great detail into the practices of the mystery religions, and it details human sacrifice, cannibalism, ritualistic sex, and then it goes on to proudly say that Freemasonry is perpetuating the spirituality of the mystery religions. You know, I mean, it's just absolutely bizarre.
I found it interesting in the documentary that as you explored the case with these children in Evansville, that they were describing Masonic symbols and Masonic rituals. I've personally researched many SRA cases that had a very heavily, like overtly Masonic influence on them. It seemed like they were more sort of a crazed, demonized subcult of some sort that branched out certainly from the mystery schools. But, you know, there was what was interesting, though, was that you seemed to present facts that the Masonic Lodge in that part of the world was directly responsible for the actual abuse that was taking place. And I thought that that was interesting. And mainly because of the way Masonry permeates the legal system in places of leadership, which is undeniable. Almost every time a case was presented to law enforcement, it was almost immediately deemed unsubstantiated, which in my own mind would definitely lend to the credibility of a power structure outside of the legal system that was operating that's much larger than most.
Because the children were saying things of such a magnitude that it would involve the institution of the school corporation, and it would involve some cooperation in part of law enforcement. Yet this was being said by as many of a dozen children that did not know one another. The parents did not know one another, and they were telling consistent stories.
One after another, each case had been deemed by the authorities as unsubstantiated. Just repeatedly, the abuse was ruled unsubstantiated. There was never enough evidence. We had the mother take the child to the hospital, and we set up an examination called a colposcopic examination. As a result of that, her allegations of abuse and having the knife put in her were substantiated. There were in fact scarring inside the child that substantiated her story of being cut with a knife. And this child had alleged that the school principal had done this.
Sue Donaldson, who is professor of psychology at the University of Southern Indiana, she publicly made the statement on the current affair video that she had examined 6 of the children and that they all were cut. They were all cut ritualistically, and they were marked.
When I saw the first child, I wondered whether or not it was self-inflicted. But as I saw the second child, and the third child, and the fourth child, and the fifth child, and the sixth child, and they all had these scars in the same places, and they all said that they were cut at the Blue House by the school official who had removed them from school.
She said that it was obvious to her that these kids had experienced trauma, and she didn't know exactly how it came about or what, but they were obviously traumatized severely.
Une membre de l'association de protection de l'enfance Children of the Underground a aidé une de ses enfants, Sarah Jane Wanamaker, ainsi que sa mère, à fuir vers Atlanta afin d'échapper à la garde du père supposément bourreau. Sarah avait fait des déclarations précises et détaillées sur des sévices rituels de type satanique, meurtre, cannibalisme, prière aux démons, menace de la couper en deux, etc. Selon cette membre d'association qui avait souhaité rester anonyme, Evansville serait un nid à satanistes transgénérationnels, mais également un fief maçonnique. Sarah a déclaré que les bourreaux filmaient tous leurs rituels, menaçant les enfants de dévoiler des photos s'ils se mettaient à parler. Elle a mentionné un présumé meurtre sacrificiel d'enfants perpétué par le principal de l'école qui aurait coupé les jambes de la victime. Il a été rapporté que la petite Sarah développait possiblement un trouble dissociatif de l'identité car elle basculait d'un caractère à l'autre pendant qu'elle parlait. Elle a décrit une vingtaine d'adultes portant des toges à capuche de couleur bleue ou noire. Elle a dessiné des symboles égyptiens similaires à certains ornements maçonniques de grands bâtiments du centre-ville de Evansville. La petite affirmait qu'il conservait des bébés dans des bocaux et que chaque acte qu'il faisait sur un enfant était archivé sur un rouleau.
Because the Masonic secret societies that judges, lawyers, and a lot of those that are involved in the justice system, police officers, sheriffs, all of those detectives, that they are also connected in these secret societies, and that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to prosecute. And at every turn of the way, it seems like these pedophiles are protected, and that these different forces of justice, which you would expect to be protecting these children, are in fact working against them.
One of my best friends is a sex crimes detective in Evansville, and back when this stuff happened, they didn't have a sex crimes unit. Also, there's a new prosecutor in Evansville, Indiana, somebody that I know as well, and I can tell you this, that these guys don't let this stuff go. But the problem is when you have these kind of cases where Freemasons are protecting Freemasons, when you have judges that are Freemasons, you have all these things, even a prosecutor, even a detective that wants to put these people away sometimes can't. This is a scary thing, because a lot of these people are police officers. I know in Evansville, Indiana, over half the force are police, are Freemasons, and So their oath for Freemasonry supersedes their oath to serve and protect the public. And this is disturbing because we see it in politics as well, which I personally believe that anybody that takes the oath of Masonry should not be allowed to serve in public office, and they should also not be allowed to be police officers. But nonetheless, most of them are, because we were founded by Freemasons here in this country.